I've decided to give my thoughts on the Nighthawk M1 Gigabit LTE mobile router now that I've been using it for approximately a year. And basically, this is the router. Um, uh, there's two ports here for an external antenna. I plugged in an external antenna, not sure that it makes much difference. Much significant difference because when I do my testing, there's hardly any increases. But given that I purchased the antenna and the ports are there, and I plugged the antenna to the outside of where I live, so it's not impeded by any walls, I've decided to uh, use the antenna every time I'm in the building. This is a USB-C cable, which I'm using to power it on. It also has a battery that can be plugged in, but generally I only plug it in when I'm out and about. When I'm at home and I'm using the router, um, at home, I keep it plugged into the AC and I remove the battery because I've had bad experiences in the past with my devices where especially my hotspots, where I constantly keep them plugged in. The battery would expand eventually, and then I get the standard battery bulge, and which is somewhat dangerous. I'm somewhat scared that the battery might explode if it expands too much. So generally, when I'm at home, I remove the battery. Also contains a back cover, but the back cover, I rarely use it. I keep it in the box here. It didn't come with this, but I carry it around. It's a USB-C to micro USB adapter. Instructions are right here, and of course the back cover, which, as I mentioned, I don't use it because generally I remove the battery regularly, and I find the back cover to be more of a nuisance. The battery fits securely, so it isn't a big issue of me not having the battery. Now, my experience is based on um, my use of the router on this date with the current firmware, which I'm just going to look up right now on my device. But let's power this on. And it's an LTE router, but just ignore the H plus on the top. It's in the area that I am in. There's no LTE. It's basically 3.5G, or some people call it 4G, non-LTE. The speed is still quite good. I'm able to stream videos, so everything is fine for that. Now, my experience, as I mentioned, is based on the settings and the firmware. The firmware of this is 2020, January the 24th. And the firmware version is NTG 9X50C underscore 12.06.11.00. Now, I find that the router is very good. Now, you will notice when I power it on here or turn on the screen that it shows you the usage. Now, this usage it also mentions that it's an estimated data only, but the counter will sometimes not go up if the router is plugged in for over 24 hours or you use a lot of data. So if you're relying on the accuracy of this, and normally these things are not accurate at all, but if the counter stops, I mean, you'll get values that are way off if you don't notice it. So what I generally do, even though I have unlimited data with my plan, um, is that I will power off the device at least once every 24 hours and then power it back on, and that sort of fixes whatever the problem is with this firmware that makes it stop after either 24 hours or you download a lot of data. Now, you will also notice that I placed a limit on the bottom, but this is just for my own purposes. There's no real limit on my data plan. It says I'm using 525.29 out of 593 gigabytes. And I have 10 days left. Both of these values are user configurable. So you set the date based on when your plan starts, and you set the amount of capacity that you have in terms of how much you can download in the other parameter, and this will keep a rough estimate of how much you're using. Now, what I like about this also is you'll notice that it has a USB port. I have tried it, and I plugged in a USB with movies on it. I've been able to, depending on the file format of the movies, I've been able to stream it when I connect to the router, but it's somewhat problematic. I don't really recommend it for that. I've also tried the Ethernet port. That works as well. The one thing that I'm not overly impressed with is the range of the router. It has a short, medium, and long range. I've set it at the long range, and the long range is not significantly longer than the short range, in my opinion. Um, Other than that, it's an excellent device. Um, no problems with it. You can watch my other video for some of the features that this router contains. And if you have any questions, please post it below and I'll be sure to answer it. And if you like watching videos on tech gadgets, please consider subscribing to my channel where you'll be notified of new videos. Thank you.